Dive into the Bible.
Welcome to our segment where we take a deep dive into the Bible. The Bible is accessible to everyone, yet parts of it can be surprising and challenging to comprehend if we do not understand its cultural context. And so this week we look at a passage that Catholics and Protestants disagree over. And it's a big deal because it changes how these two groups operate. And the passage is in Matthew 16. And here's what it says. When Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, who do people say that the Son of Man is? Well, they replied, some say John the Baptist, some say Elijah, and others say Jeremiah or one of the other prophets. Then he asked them, but who do you say I am? Simon Peter answered, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. This is one of the strongest statements made by anyone about who Jesus actually was. And then verse 17, Jesus replied, you are blessed, Simon, son of John, because my Father in heaven has revealed this to you. You did not learn this from any human being. Now, verse 18 is the controversial passage. Verse 18 says, now I say to you that you are Peter, which means rock, and upon this rock I will build my church, and all the powers of hell will not conquer it. Now, we want to look closer at verse 18, where it says, now I say to you that you are Peter, which means rock, and upon this rock I will build my church, and all the powers of hell will not conquer it. The Roman Catholic Church believes, and so much of their theology lives or dies on this hill, that Peter, not just the person of Peter, but also the office, what we would call the perpetual office of the Pope, is described here. However, Protestants and Eastern Orthodox churches agree that Catholics are wrong and that this rock does not refer to Peter himself. Interesting, almost everyone agreed that Peter was not the rock the church was built on until the Catholics called together the Council of Trent, which was 25 different sessions held between 1545 and 1563 to counter the Reformation views. And then even at age 72, Augustine wrote in his book Retractions that the rock here did not mean Christ. And so here are the reasons why the Catholics are wrong in this passage. First, the grammar, this rock, why did Jesus say this? It seemed out of place. For instance, in verses 17 and 18, Jesus constantly would use the word you to refer to Peter. Blessed are you, like in verse 17. So why then, if Jesus has been using the word you, why didn't he say in verse 18, and I tell you, you are Peter, and upon you, the rock, I will build my church, and so on. If Jesus had said it this way, he would have still had the word play, because Peter means rock. However, Jesus' meaning would have been a whole lot clearer. Second, the rest of Scripture. In the New Testament, the word rock is used only 12 times, and it is never used by anyone other than to mean Jesus. And I can give you several passages to support my claim, including what Peter himself said in 1 Peter chapter 2, verses 4 through 8. Now, so was the rock in this passage Jesus? A lot of people believe that. And because we know it wasn't Peter, but it also probably wasn't Jesus either. And this is where the context of this passage comes in. Jesus has taken the disciples to the region of Caesarea Philippi, which is situated near the mountain region containing Mount Hermon. This area was known as an evil, otherworldly domain for his disciples. They would have known exactly what this area represented. According to Jewish tradition, Mount Hermon was where the divine sons of God had descended from heaven, ultimately corrupting humankind via their offspring with human women that you can read in Genesis chapter 6, verses 1 through 4. Also, during Israel's divided kingdom period, Jeroboam built a pagan religious center in this area just south of Mount Hermon in the area of Dan, where the Israelites worshiped Baal instead of Yahweh. And then Caesarea Philippi had been built and dedicated to Zeus. This pagan god had worshiped at a religious center built a short distance from the more ancient one in Dan at the foot of Mount Hermon. And so aside from a brief interlude during the time of Joshua through Solomon, the gates of hell were continually open for business. Therefore, the rock referred to in this passage was neither Peter nor Jesus himself. It was the rock on which they were standing, the foot of Mount Hermon, the demonic headquarters of the Old Testament and the Greek world. We often presume that the phrase, the gates of hell should not prevail against it, describes the church taking on the onslaught of evil. But the word against is actually not present in the Greek. Translating the phrase without it gives a completely different connotation. It would mean the powers of hell will not withstand it. And so therefore the church, Jesus sees the church as the aggressor. He was declaring war on evil and death. Jesus would build his church atop the very gates of hell, and he would bury them. And so he was doing that word play there, saying, my church is going to be built right here where people think is the entrance to hell, to Hades, to Sheol, as it would be in the Old Testament. So I hope you've enjoyed this week's view of the deep dive into the Bible, where we deal with the cultural context of the Bible.
Deep dive.